Hey, tennis fans, you are listening to Matchpoint Canada, the official podcast of Tennis Canada. We are also members of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm Ben Lewis, joined alongside Mike McIntyre as we continue to wind down the tennis season now into November, have the WTA Finals underway, ATP Finals upcoming, Billie Jean King Cup, Davis Cup, and a big name former player we chat with Mike this week in Daniel Nestor.
Yeah, great to have Canada's all-time great, all-time GOAT in terms of doubles, Daniel Nestor, who carried the sport in this country for so long, inspired so many players, so many great moments throughout his career that you can look back on. I mean, the career itself lasted forever. We can think back to that match in the 80s in singles against Stefan Edberg in Davis Cup play. That was so huge at the time. And then later, obviously, transitioning to become a doubles specialist, which allowed him to play until the age of, I believe it was 47. The Olympic gold medal was such a highlight for Canadian tennis fans and really sparked, more of an interest, I think, in the sport here before others followed in his footsteps and have taken the sport now to all-time highs. He's been a guest with us before. It was timely given that, there's some news with him, both positive and not as positive in terms of Hall of Fame accomplishments. He got into one Hall of Fame, didn't quite get into the other. And those were two big reasons to speak to him this week. And I think he handled those questions very openly, very honestly, which is exactly what you'd expect from someone like Danny.
Yeah, look, the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame was, of course, a no-brainer. And as you said, most accomplished tennis player in Canadian history. When you look at the accolades, the number of titles, former world number one, putting Canadian tennis on the map specifically for doubles, you could say. And now we see so much of the fruits of his labor in singles as well. And he's been a legend. But it was nice for him to divulge his thoughts on the International Tennis Hall of Fame. We had the voting a couple weeks ago. Maria Sharapova got in. The Bryan brothers, great rivals of him, got in, and Nestor did not. So we talk about that among many career highlights. Listen into our conversation with Canadian tennis legend Daniel Nestor. And so happy this week to welcome on one of the most accomplished doubles players in tennis history. He's an Olympic gold medalist, winner of 12 major titles, also a former world number one.
And that's not where the accolades end. He's the holder of 91 career ATP titles, first player to capture all four majors and Masters 1000 titles, as well as, I believe, I'll ask him to correct me in a moment if I'm wrong, but the quickest male tennis player to reach 1,000 victories. Daniel Nestor, welcome back to Matchpoint Canada, and thanks for making the time for us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Feels timely because just this past week, you were inducted into Canada's Sports Hall of Fame and received the Order of Sport. I guess, firstly, what was that experience like at the Canadian Museum of History in Gatineau and just kind of taking that all in and receiving such a great honor?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Beautiful venue. We were, hosted very, very well, and always nice to be in the nation's capital. And yeah, I mean, the event went smoothly. It was nice to be inducted with the other great athletes and people who have dedicated their lives to sport, and also to be alongside some of the ones, some of the names that have already been inducted. It's pretty crazy to think or have my name alongside them for sure.
It's quite the impressive list of accomplishments, pardon me. One that any tennis player would just, absolutely, beyond dream of having in their career. When I list those and when Ben listed some of the accomplishments off the top, is there one in particular when you look back that really holds a special place in your heart, or is it kind of like the collection overall that you look back on with great pride?
Well, probably two. I mean, the Olympics was huge, winning that, just because of the spectacle of the event and being such a huge sporting event, and I think also we weren't doing that well as a country in those games, so it might have been a little bit bigger deal. Maybe got a little more attention for that, but and just for the sport of tennis, it helped, sport that is we weren't as mainstream as we are now, let's say back then. So it was nice for tennis, and I think for my career also it helped me a lot. If you see all my major wins came after that as far as Grand Slams are concerned, so it really helped me gain the confidence to play my best or play well enough in the biggest moments to win. So that was good. That was a good confidence booster. And then Wimbledon for sure. Those two, having won the other slams and then finally winning Wimbledon was important for me, and it's the pinnacle of our sport. So those two stand out for sure.
Yeah, the Olympic gold medal for me, when I think back, not just to my tennis memories growing up, and I was in my late teens, early 20s then, but just Olympic memories, that win from you and Sébastien Leroux was just so epic at the time for us. And, your Canadian Hall of Fame induction, obviously such a great moment for you. I got to ask, because there was another Hall of Fame that hasn't quite come to the same conclusion yet, although Ben and I are sure that's just around the corner. And, to be honest, the International Tennis Hall of Fame, we were both shocked. I mean, I can't think of another word, to be honest, that for a third round, they didn't somehow see fit to include you at this point in time. We put it out there on Twitter, and a lot of our followers and Canadian tennis fans were equally shocked and surprised. American tennis fans too, and fans really worldwide, I would imagine, with your resume, kind of head scratching. I got to ask you, what was your reaction to having to wait another year here?
Yeah, so I don't know the process. I know that I can be put back on the ballot at some point. I don't know how long, if there's how long that period might be, but I mean, I wasn't surprised the first year. I mean, obviously Juan Carlos Ferrero and Carlos Moya were on the ballot. I didn't expect it. I didn't know what to expect the second year when Leandro came on and Carlos Moya was still on. I thought he was going to get it, and then this year I didn't expect it because the Bryans came on, and obviously they're more deserving than anyone. But so it's just in the comparison with Leander and I don't want to take anything away from him because I always saw him with us on the same level. The guy's an amazing player, and he did so many great things in the sport. It's just that if you look at the numbers side by side of tournaments won, weeks at number one, matches won, winning percentage, that kind of stuff, winning the finals, the final eight, that kind of stuff. It's a little bit surprising, but again, I mean, he won 10 mixed slams, which is crazy to think of, and my 2 cents regarding that is, I mean, I just compare it to like, I mean, I played mixed doubles, and it's not easy to win for sure, but when you compare it to maybe a sport that is mixed, like I don't know what's Tessa Virtue's partner's name? Is it Scott Moore?
Scott Moyer.
Scott. Yep.
Scott Moyer. So when you compare it like to that, they're a full-time team where they're together all year long, and that's what they do. And in tennis, mixed doubles is not what we do. That's something that we just get together for 4 times a year, and sometimes you don't even have a partner until right before the tournament, and you're not really practicing with your partner. You're just getting together for the matches, and if you do well, it's amazing. Obviously, it's great to win any tournament, but it's not the same kind of thing where it's being recognized for that. To me, it's more of an exhibition than an actual Grand Slam. But again, I don't want to sound like that person that that's making excuses or whatever it is. I mean, I don't even know if we deserve to be in the Hall of Fame to start with, doubles guys. I mean, I think the Bryans and the Woodies are no brainers, but
I'd say Danny Nestor's a no-brainer too.
I don't know. I mean, I was looking at some of the people that were inducted, and then I saw Connors and McEnroe, my childhood heroes, giving speeches, and I'm like, do I belong giving a speech in that place? So whatever it is, I mean, it's fine. It's just the only thing that was surprising was that Leander got in ahead of me. So whatever else it is, it doesn't really faze me. That doesn't faze me either. I mean, I don't crave the attention and the thought of giving a speech and going there and having the attention on me. I'm not going to miss that. Like my parents and my family, will probably be much more upset than I am, but because they like that kind of stuff. And obviously it's nice to have that kind of recognition, but it's not something that I think about that much, to be honest.
Well, we should say, the Bryan brothers getting inducted, and Maria Sharapova, obviously that's kind of a powerhouse list there. And the Bryan brothers, I mean, that's a team that you had experience facing on the other side of the net a number of times. And when you see them get inducted, did you maybe reflect back on that rivalry maybe you shared with them and what it meant for your career as a player?
Yeah, 59 times actually, 30, 29 for them. So
wow,
there. But we had a lot of battles and a lot of memorable matches, and And I mean, but they were the face of doubles. I mean, they did so much for the sport, and when people thought of doubles, they thought of them. They were so exciting to watch, and there was a time there where it was kind of struggling, the doubles, in particular, and so they did a lot to revive it, and I think we all owe them quite a bit of gratitude for what they've done for the sport, and they're it's crazy to think how much they've won and what they've accomplished. It's, you can never say never. I mean, things you imagine that something like that is never going to be matched, but it's just, I mean, it's similar to Djokovic winning and them winning and Nadal winning 14 majors and sorry, 14 French Opens. You think like these things will never be touched, but they always seem to be. I don't know, at some point in the future.
Did you have a standout match, maybe that you beat the Bryan brothers in, one that sort of you'd recall in your memory was a big time win?
I don't know. I mean, so the first thing that comes to my head is being down 9-4 in the Super Breaker in the final Cincinnati against them and winning 7 straight points. And that was a good one to remember. We beat them in the final of. I remember we beat them in the final of Wimbledon, and we were playing in the final of the Toronto tournament, the Rogers Cup, and at the time it was called the Rogers Cup, and we were playing really well, and we're up a set and a break, and they kind of made a joke like on the sidelines, you guys are on fire, something like that, and it kind of threw us off, and then all of a sudden we were in big trouble. It was like a third set tiebreaker. We were down, and then my partner Zimonjic stepped up, and he hit some really good shots, and we ended up winning. So I don't know, those kind of things off the top of my head, but we played in a few Grand Slam finals, and I think we won a couple, they won a couple, and it was just fun it was always great energy playing against them.
59 matches is quite a lot of matches against one team. Of course, you would have played those 59 matches with several different partners, so they had that advantage of always being linked to one another. When you think back to the partners that you played with during your professional career, and you had success with so many, but which partner would you say you clicked with the most? It could be on court, off court, but just that you felt like you really jived with, and who's someone that you never partnered with that maybe you would have liked to have had the opportunity to play alongside?
Yeah, I mean, I had three partners that were kind of long-term partners. I mean, Knowles, 10 years. We won a lot of Masters. We won a few slams. I thought, might have should have done a little bit better, but we were probably younger. If we were probably a little more mature, a little bit older when we started playing together, maybe we would have won a little bit more. But I mean, he was amazing. I mean, he's such an amazing net player, and he taught me a lot, about how to move at the net, and just watching him, and he was great personality, more so off the court than on the court. I mean, he was a little bit temperamental on the court, but a lot of good memories. And then Zimonjic and I, we gelled right away. We won also 3 slams, and but in the amount of time, I felt like we had the most success in a short period of time. Won 3 slams and many other tournaments, and it was great playing with him because of my Serbian background. He was Serbian, and he had a big game, and he was. We didn't always get along that well, but it was something where we clicked on the court, and whenever we played well. And then with Mirny, I was older then, and he was so much fun to play with because he's a top singles player. He had such a relaxed attitude, and he was so positive and such good energy on the court, and nothing ever bothered him, nothing ever faced him, and I learned a lot from him in that way too. I mean, just to have that approach is not it's easy to say, and that's the ideal approach, and for any young athlete, that is the approach to probably maximize your potential, in any sport. If you have that mentality of just getting ready for the next point, whatever happened, you're moving on, and you're ready to play the next point. I mean, that is the most ideal personality to have. So those three partners stand out, and some of the Canadians. Winning gold with Sebastian was huge, and we always played really well together. Juniors and pros, and then Vasek the last few years was fun, just being part of the Davis Cup team and all these great young players that we had, and he was one of them, and we had fun playing together for sure.
And sorry, who's someone that you never got to partner with
yeah,
that you would have liked to?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I asked Todd Woodbridge to play when Mark Woodford retired after we beat them. I think it was the year after we beat them at the Olympics, and he didn't want to play, so that was a little bit upsetting. But he had so much success with so many different people. He won like I don't know 9 Wimbledons or something like that, and 17 slams. So it didn't matter who he played with. Yeah, obviously playing one match with John McEnroe would have been like a dream to play with someone that was that talented and that great. I mean, he
He
was
would
the
not have
best.
been as cool as Mirny, that's for sure.
I don't think so.
Yeah, but it probably would have been fun to be alongside him more so than playing against him for sure.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. Well, in terms of learning the sport of doubles, I think you're such a great ambassador. And last year you launched an online doubles training course. With some changes incoming on the tour, how do you see the future of doubles maybe fitting into our sport? Do you have any concerns of its staying power and where it's at kind of right now?
Well, I mean, if you look at what, England's doing or UK and, they hired Louis Caillé who's Canadian, who used to, do great things for our sport. And, they have so many good, doubles players as a result of it. I mean, he's most notable for his doubles coaching. And I think it's just an opportunity for more people to play and, creating jobs. And, so if you have athletes that maybe, singles isn't, going as well. I mean, I played for 10 years in singles, but I was always better at doubles. And, if I would have started at just playing doubles from a younger age, I probably would have won more tournaments. But, I mean, I think it's an opportunity for people. I mean, tennis is a mainstream sport now in Canada. And I think, if we do have more attention, not more than singles. I mean, obviously singles is where it's at. And, everyone starts out playing singles and but just having that option, something that maybe we don't focus on enough, it would be a good thing for boys and girls. I mean, look at what Gabby's doing, and she's having an amazing career, and there's no shame in that. And just like I had a good career, and whether it's singles or doubles, you're out there, you're playing and doing something you love to do. I think it's important.
About tennis becoming more of a mainstream sport, I think a lot of that has to do with the athletes that young kids can look up to, and that includes our singles and doubles players. Two that certainly Canadians have looked up to for some time, and you got to play closely with both of them, are Milos Raonic and Vasek, who you mentioned earlier as well. It's kind of funny they've become sort of the elder statesmen now on the Canadian tennis sports landscape, and it doesn't seem long ago that they were these two baby-faced kids playing doubles against Novak and Rafa at the National Bank Open, but they've had a tough few years with injuries, obviously, but they clearly still love competing so much. What can you say about, how they've both helped grow the sport here in Canada?
Well, I often mention that Milos, he's the reason why things changed. I mean, when I was younger, I looked up to guys like Rand Connell, and he was a, good singles player, pretty good, but a really good doubles player, and that's kind of the way my career went. So I thought, if it's not working out in singles, it was an opportunity to play doubles, and if it wasn't for a guy like him, then maybe I wouldn't have, even entertained that. But I think for Milos come breaking through in singles and doing what he did and becoming a household name and someone that was competitive in any tournament he played as far as like going deep, I think that changed the landscape in Canadian tennis. And then all of a sudden it was on TV a lot more, and Vasek, who he grew up playing against in the juniors, was playing well too. They had that memorable semifinal match at the Rogers Cup, and so those two guys, kind of paved the way, and it became a thing to not just be good at doubles, and which we had been. We were okay at singles, but and now we're producing guys that are really good singles players, and then all of a sudden, Jeannie comes, and then Bianca on the women's side, and then Felix and Layla and Dennis, and all the others that made a name for themselves, and Gabby carried the tradition in doubles, and so it's special to see, and it was really good to be a part of that for sure.
Calendar wise, right now on the men's side, we're approaching the ATP Finals end of year championships, an event you won 4 times. Where would that sort of rank for you when you were in your playing career, kind of priority wise? And do you look back of any of those victories being especially significant?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a fun event to be part of. I mean, it feels like you're rewarded for having a really good year on tour, and then you get it's such a special tournament because there's so few people there, and you get treated so well, and it's a first class event, and we were often playing in London, which is a beautiful venue, great city to be in at that time of the year. Well, any time of the year, it's such an amazing place, and family would come, so it was a really special experience. And I don't know, as far as winning, I mean, I think one year Max and I went 5-0. That was I don't know if we must have lost a set, but we went undefeated. That was pretty special. I think I won with one year. The first year I won it was with Knowles, and we had already agreed to split for the
Right.
next year. And we had already split. We split after Wimbledon, and no, sorry, after the U.S. Open, and then so for a couple of months we didn't play there, and then all of a sudden we show up because we qualified for the Masters and we win it. We weren't playing well at first, and then all of a sudden we caught fire and we ended up winning, and so that made things a little bit uncomfortable. But it was yeah, a lot of that's just an amazing tournament. So many different ways.
I wonder how many doubles partners have been through something similar at the year-end finals. Probably not too many. I'm sure it's kind of a neat story for you guys to have. My last question for you, Daniel, will be about the upcoming Davis Cup tie, which has Canada facing Germany. If they're able to get past them in the quarters, perhaps a matchup against Rafa Nadal in Spain, where he's playing for the last time. What expectations do you have for the squad going to Malaga? Felix won't be there, unfortunately, but Dennis, who's been playing great for Canada, Milos is back and healthy, Vasek, and Gabriel Diallo, who's really had a super solid year, breaking the top 100 for the first time. How do you sort of assess their chances, and will you be following while they're over there?
Yeah, for sure. I always enjoy watching a good Davis Cup, and seeing the big team that we have with support, and reminiscing of some good memories in the locker room and all that. Camaraderie was amazing. That's one of the reasons I played as long as I did. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And as I said, having such a good team the last few years made me want to, stay involved. As far as the upcoming, I mean, it's a dangerous team. I wouldn't call them favorites, but Gabe has had such an amazing run the last 6 months, and it's a couple of years now. He's since he graduated from university, he's shown that he has a big game, and now it's all coming together at the right time. And Dennis, again, I mean, he's probably not where he wants to be in the rankings, but he's not someone that anyone wants to play against in indoor tennis. And he's got such a big game; he can beat anyone, especially in the number two position. He's so dangerous there. And Milos, if he's healthy, again, he's shown that he can play unbelievable tennis with so little preparation. And then Vasek, again, same thing. Both those guys are in the same boat. If he's healthy, I mean, he's a great asset for doubles, if needed in singles. And it's an explosive team that we have. I mean, if they put it all together, they can win it again.
But final question from me. You mentioned Nadal earlier and Djokovic, and is it a bit surreal in a sense for you now on the sidelines, seeing the legends of the sport slowly leave the game? Obviously, Federer retiring a few years ago, and now this will be Rafa's final tournament.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, for sure, the legacy these guys have left, and Novak's still going, and hopefully he gets one more slam in there to break the all-time record. But yeah, it's not going to be the same. But I think, like, 5-10 years ago, the conversation started as far as like what's going to happen after these big three retire. The sport's going to suffer. It's going to go downhill. But that's not the case. I mean, it's still popular. There's new faces, new stars. Sinner and Alcaraz are doing what Djokovic and Nadal, we're doing, and Federer, and now there's so many good young players, and these guys are kind of dominating, but it's still exciting, and just goes to show you how popular the sport is, and how mainstream tennis has become compared to all the other sports.
Correct me if I'm wrong as I wrap here. Did you also play Rafa and Lopez at the Olympics? I have a memory of you guys
Yeah,
having a match and maybe a controversial line call. Was that in Rio?
Yeah, there was a few. That was a tough match to swallow because I felt like it was my last chance. I was playing well. 2016, I
Yeah.
made the final of the Aussie Open, and that was my last year where I felt like I was still playing well, and it was pretty much downhill after that loss after that tournament.
Maybe
So
I shouldn't have brought that up.
no, it's totally fine. I mean, we had a chance, but we didn't get it. But yeah,
I apologize
but
for my co-host. He can't help but remember every detail from every one of Rafa's
Oh
matches.
yeah.
So,
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I remember watching that on the stream. Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway.
hey Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. I would say get that International Tennis Hall of Fame speech ready because you're gonna have to give it at some point. There's no avoiding that perpetually. So
Yeah, we'll see.
we look
Okay,
forward
thanks
to
a lot.
hearing that. And I want to ask one quick thing before we go. I've never asked this before, but to any of our guests, but I've got a good friend of mine. His name is Luke, and he's a big Danny Nestor fan. And he's not a huge tennis fan, but whenever he talks to me about the podcast, he's like, "Oh, when are you having Nestor back on again?" So he's going to be excited for this. I don't know if you could just say a quick something to Luke for the support over the years, because that would mean a lot to him.
Yeah, Luke, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. I don't know how many diehard fans I have outside of my family members, but for the few that I do have, I really appreciate the support and hope you're well and enjoying this weekly podcast or monthly podcast, whatever it is.
It's weekly.
Weekly,
Yeah,
nice.
some fans
There you
probably
go.
wish it was monthly, but yeah, it's weekly.
You guys are doing a good job.
Thanks a lot.
We
Thanks a lot, Danny.
appreciate it.
Take care, and
Okay,
we hope
thanks,
to
guys.
chat with you again, eh?
Okay, see you guys.
There you have it, our interview with Canadian tennis legend Daniel Nestor. And look, I do get the sense that maybe he's a little bit miffed by not getting that nod into the International Tennis Hall of Fame, but I enjoyed his reasoning, and he's a really good sport about it, very respectful to all his colleagues, and I hope that they come to their senses through the voting process and get him a spot in the next couple of years.
I mean, I thought, isn't the expression third time's the charm? Is that I
Yeah,
guess
yeah,
not in this, because this was the third time
it
that he'd
was.
gone through the nomination process. And I thought he handled it really well. Like, to me, I don't detect any sort of ego
No,
or major disappointment. I almost wanted him to be more pissed off, to be honest. I almost wanted him because I was ticked off and I couldn't believe it. And it had nothing to do with Sharapova getting in or the Bryan brothers getting in. No objections to that. I think those are no-brainers as well.
yeah.
But there is no limitation. There's no limit, no minimum or number of player or maximum number of players that can be considered for inclusion. So it's not that there were others that, they only take two of the three nominees. That's not the case. And I can't see how anybody could look at his resume. I mean, it felt like forever just to get through the length of accomplishments in our introduction when we spoke with him. And we could have gone on and listed even more, of course, or gotten more specific with it. But how can you not have someone like that in that Hall of Fame? And I went to their website, I did a little digging, and it says that the people who make the decision are global tennis media, historians, and industry leaders who are highly knowledgeable about the sport, its history, and its personalities. Well, I'm going to have to sort of, challenge those criteria of their members if they're going to look at someone with Nestor's Hall of Fame credentials and not accept him.
Well, it makes me wonder, did they give a hard and proper look? And sometimes I do feel, we know years ago, Canada was really overlooked as a tennis nation. I think that's a known fact. And the Bryan brothers, the personalities that they have, and Nestor talked about that. I mean, they were doubles, but that high energy that they had on the court, I think they were obviously more recognized just in the way they carried themselves and how they conducted themselves than Daniel Nestor. And
Agreed,
almost,
agreed. I totally
yeah,
agree with that. And
yep,
he agreed with that too. He even said
yes,
that they did so much for the sport because
for
of their
sure.
notoriety, their outgoing personalities. So, yeah, there's no debating that. But that shouldn't, exclude someone who might have been on the quieter side, which is kind of funny because off court, Danny Nestor is anything but quiet. But he gave that personality on course that he was more, focused on the tennis and just getting it done out there. But yeah, sorry to kind of interrupt you there, but it
No,
just
you're right.
shouldn't matter that he was on the quieter side of things. And it says that to get in, a player needs 75% of the votes of those tennis media historians and other experts. And I'm just shocked that at least three out of four people didn't see fit to put him in there.
Well, hopefully, over time, maybe you and I might can get a vote to help
Well,
determine some of these players, right?
that's right. That's right. And I don't think this is us being homers either. Like, look, I can look
No,
at this in an unbiased sort of manner. Look, anyone can submit a nomination, and they must be in by January 2026. So I'm going to put out the link on my Twitter at McIntyre Tennis, and anyone who's listening who's as equally, irate as I am, because I really actually feel it like my blood's almost boiling
Oh, you're
talking
much
about
more
it even
bothered than
now.
he is.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I guess I'm glad that it's not really, bothering him that much. But I'll put the link out there. By all means, go and put his name in there again. Although I believe you remain on the ballot for 2 years after, and his last nomination was, I believe, a year ago. So this would be his second. Next year would be a third, if I'm doing it correctly. But regardless, I think we should all try and, Canadian tennis fans put that nomination in there so they look at it and raise an eyebrow and think, yeah, maybe we didn't quite get this one right.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's so cool that he played nearly 60 matches against the Bryan brothers. 30 to 29, he said. It's almost similar to the number of times Djokovic and Nadal have squared off, and you see like, wow, that was one of the great doubles rivalries of the past couple of decades.
And
Um,
that's what makes his accomplishments to me, I'm not saying more important or impressive, but just super impressive that he was able to play the Bryan brothers that many times,
yeah.
keep the head-to-head so incredibly close. They had played with each other since they were little kids, and he was with, I don't know how many partners. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess five, six, seven different
Mhm.
partners for all of those matches. So to me, that just speaks to his incredible talent and ability to sort of adapt to the other person on he was sharing the same side of the net with.
Yeah, absolutely. If we look ahead, I mean, we talked about the ATP Finals with him. Those are coming up. We had our final Masters 1000 of the season in Paris, Bercy. Right before the tournament, Yannick Sinner pulled out. We were thinking maybe if he's healthy, he might be the favorite, the world number one. Carlos Alcaraz lost to an upstart Ugo Humbert, who was really riding the French crowd and reached his first ever Masters 1000 final. Incredible run. Finally stopped by Sasha Zverev, who won his second Masters 1000 of the season. And with this victory, I mean, this is maybe bothering plenty of tennis people, but this is the reality of how our ranking system works. He's now ranked number two in the world above Carlos Alcaraz, who this season has won both the French Open and Wimbledon. Zverev has not yet won a Grand Slam title. Does that irk you?
Does it irk me? I mean, how many times have we seen this before, I guess, right? Where someone's had even the number one ranking. I mean, Caroline Wozniacki had it for a while. That
She
comes to
did.
mind, and she didn't hold the slam. I mean, there have been others. She's not the only one. That's just the one that pops into my head. And I love Caroline Wozniacki, big fan of hers. I can't say the same about Zverev, personally speaking, but he's got the number two next to him, and you can't say he doesn't deserve it based on what the rankings are, how the rankings are set up. He's obviously played a ton of tournaments and done well enough to be there, but I don't think anyone's going to look at Zverev and say, well, he's a better player than Carlos Alcaraz, or he's had a better season than Carlos Alcaraz. I don't know if Zverev would take his results over Alcaraz's, but have a lower ranking if it was put to him as a question. But nonetheless, that's how it is, and yet again, we see maybe potentially a flaw with the. But then what do, right? Do you rank the slams so even more higher than they are? Do you give 5,000 points for a slam win? I mean, where do you draw the line for what's reasonable? It's kind of tough to say. It's good for debate. It's good to have that debate. I want to also mention Ugo Humbert. Pretty cool for him. 26 years old. I wouldn't quite call him a veteran yet, but he's no spring chicken either. He's kind of in that middle phase of a career, I guess. And interestingly enough, I didn't know this, but he won the first six ATP finals that he played in,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and he's only the third player in the Open era apparently to do so. So that's kind of cool. And then on the slam side of things, he's only made the fourth round of a major twice, both coming at Wimbledon. So interesting that we maybe haven't seen a bit more of a breakthrough from him at the major level, but perhaps this gives him that, boost of confidence next season that it could happen.
Yeah, look, he really thrives on fast indoor hard surfaces, and Paris was playing remarkably fast. A lot of players were commenting on just how quick the surface was. Things got a little salty with Ugo and Karen Khachanov as well in their semifinal. That Ugo was obviously he's not as vocal a player as others, but particularly this week he was being loud, he was being boisterous. You could tell he was feeding off that French energy that was propelling him to this incredible run. And late in the third set, he's continuing to cheer every point he wins, while Khachanov looks hobbled, looks injured, is moving poorly at one point, hits the deck. And Humbert is maybe not really looking over at that side of the court, but still celebrating his points. And that seemed to rub Khachanov the wrong way. So it was kind of interesting late in the season. We get one of these controversies where Ugo Humbert, to me, has always been a nice guy, nice player, suddenly bothering a veteran like Khachanov on the other side of the court.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? You're in front of your home crowd. You're on the cusp of one of the best wins or, best results of your career. What are you supposed to dial it down? And then what if you lose momentum? And how many times have we seen that where a player
It's
seems to
true.
be ailing or is injured and you kind of soften up a little and maybe in your heart you feel sympathy for them. And the next thing you know, whoa, they're back out there and they're kicking your butt. So I got no problem with it, and I got no problem with a little controversy either. I think it's okay for tennis to get a little salty. That word you use every now and then. It's something the sport could use.
Yeah, that's for sure. ATP Finals race is still not decided, and maybe that's a bit surprising given it's closing in. Andrei Rublev lost early at this tournament, and Alex de Minaur actually leapfrogged him just by a spot. Casper Ruud's trying to get in, and then the one big question mark, which all of these guys are probably wondering, is Novak Djokovic going to bother playing the end of year tournament, which he's had so much success at in the past? I sort of wonder, he skips Paris. He did play Shanghai, but is Novak going to conserve his energy and wait for 2025, or is he going to be ready to go for the ATP Finals?
It's a good question. And I mean, he seems to me to be someone who thinks about legacy and thinks about career accomplishments. And certainly when you're in an era where your two biggest rivals are, matching you for much of your career, up until recent times, more or less. I wonder if he goes to do it just for that purpose, to add a little something else, and get him a little bit even more ahead of Federer and Nadal to distance himself in that GOAT conversation. I mean, I think I read that he was at the Serbian Open as a spectator signing
Yeah,
autographs and things like that. So he's relatively, in the region, I guess. We'll see what happens. If I had to guess right now, and I could certainly see it either way, but I'd say I think maybe he goes for it to try and end out the year with a positive and again pad the incredible career he's already had.
interesting. I'm actually leaning the other way, and he hasn't
I think most
technically.
are. I think most are leaning the other way.
Yeah, well, and he hasn't technically qualified, though I think a lot would have to change for him to somehow lose his spot. But it's just he played pretty well actually in Shanghai. Like he had a perfectly good tournament. I just wonder, does he think he can muster up the energy to be in peak form and sort of knowing at this stage of his career, he will have to play his absolute best to be a proper challenger to Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner. I just don't know.
We'll have to wait and see what happens. It's coming up soon. I mean, look, we're really getting. I feel now that it's November, that the calendar is flipped from October to November, that the end is in sight. The 14-month tennis season is almost done, or whatever it feels like, anyways. So. Excited for that. But for right now, we've got another final season-ending tournament happening, and that's on the WTA side of things, and happening in Saudi Arabia for the first time. And look, we've got what Irina Sabalenka at the time we're recording already clinched a spot in the semifinals. Elena Rybakina already out of contention. Who else is already out of contention?
Well, nobody
Um,
else is yet
that's it, eh?
eliminated. You
Okay.
have Zhang Xinwen who lost one match to Sabalenka but got a win as well against Rybakina. So she and Paolini will kind of fight for that spot in Group Purple. And then if we look over to Group Orange, Iga Swiatek rallies for a victory over the Wimbledon champion Barbara Krejcikova. Coco Gauff started with an early win over Jessica Pegula. And I'll just make this point. It's kind of interesting. If we looked back, say, a year ago, you would probably circle Iga Swiatek, Elena Rybakina as two massive favorites to win this event. Of course, Iga did. Now for Rybakina, she's out. She hadn't played since the U.S. Open, has a new coach in Goran Ivanisevic. And then I have questions over Iga Swiatek and her chances. Like she was down a set and almost double break to Krejcikova before rallying to win, but she really hasn't played any tennis at all this fall. So it feels like she's quite vulnerable. And then I look over to Group Purple and see the player who's already in the semifinals and wonder if anybody's really ready to properly challenge Arena Sabalenka, given the season she's had and the way she's played the past few months.
Yeah, fair point. Although Swiatek usually saves her best for last and was absolutely terrific last year. ripping through this very tournament. So we'll see if she can raise her game a little bit. Maybe sometimes, you've seen it early match, where there's a little bit of a hiccup, and then it's kind of smooth sailing from there. So we'll see. I gotta understand why is it group purple and group orange? Like these are the what's with the colors? Is there a significance to this?
That's a good question. Normally it's named after players or
Yeah, like why don't we have like group Serena Williams and group Steffi Graf or something like that, or Martina Navratilova? I just don't.
I'd prefer that.
It's so random. Anyway, sorry, my mind just went there. Another place my mind is going is wondering why the 5,000 fan stadium that they built, which is apparently quite impressive, why is it only holding 400 fans for some matches with players like Iga Swiatek on the court? That is certainly, troubling and not what you want to see at a year-end event like this, celebrating the very best in the sport. Tim Henman, whose opinion I respect greatly, said like why didn't they give away tickets to communities and schools, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not like profit is a concern in Saudi Arabia. Like even if the event is a loss in terms of turning a profit, they've got deep pockets. So why not just give the tickets away? And they've had plenty of time to do so. That's the other head scratcher. Like last year in Cancun, it was so last minute. It was announced late. They were putting up the Central Stadium late. Even in Texas, I think that was kind of a late announcement the year before. But this has been known since April, so they've had so much time to put this together. I hear they're treating the players terrifically. The venues is apparently top notch. Well, you got to fill it so that it feels like a top notch venue too. It's not just, the appearance and the exterior, but it's the vibe that you're going to create there.
Yeah, look, it's unfortunate I think that we're having this conversation again, almost year after year, where this is supposed to be a marquee event. And you mentioned they treat the players as if it is a first class event. It is with the WTA Finals, the top eight of the season, and absolute world class tennis, best women's players in the world. And we're scrapping to fill the seats. It's obviously a big problem. It's a bad look on TV when you see a bunch of empty seats for, I watched the Iga Krejcikova match and I was like, this is a really good match. Like, how are the stands not full? They were full in Saudi Arabia for the Six Kings Slam, which was it should be noted, marketed way more heavily than the WTA finals. I don't know if it's a marketing issue or why the word is just not spreading a little bit better to get people to fill up this tournament. It's a
Yeah,
shame.
that Six Kings one though also had Nadal for one of the last times.
For sure. No, of
Djokovic there. I
course.
mean, if we had Serena Williams playing this for the last time, I think it'd be a different story too.
You're right.
But who knows what the event would have been like without those two legends in it, if it was a weaker field. Um, it's tough to say, I guess. Anyways, it's just yeah, it's unfortunate because look, I wish we lived in proximity to the WTA finals. We'd be there for sure. And
Definitely.
but how many countries? I don't. It's yeah, and the marketing and all of that. But to me, women's tennis right now, it's so exciting. You got so many great names there at the top. Um, like I've said it before, I prefer going and watching the women's events to the men's right now. So we'll see what they can do to sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of save face as the tournament winds down, and hopefully the semis and the finals are very well attended, and they've got a 5,000 seat capacity crowd for them.
Yeah, we still have a ways to go here, and we should mention on the Canadian side, the Canadian Kiwi pairing of Gabby Dabrowski and Aaron Routliffe, of course, competing in doubles, the second seeds, and they opened with a win over Kudermetova and Chan in straight sets, and getting ready to compete against the Italians with Paolini there and her partner Irani. So I think it's a great opportunity for those two to make a run. They were in the semifinals last year, now more experience under their belt. Of course, last year they won the US Open, but now they've had that full calendar year 2024 fearsome double squad. There's no reason to think Dabrowski and Routliffe could be competing for the end of year title.
For sure. And we consider them a three-quarter Canadian team for sure because of Aaron's Canadian roots as well. And I'm just so happy for them. And I don't say that a ton, like, oh, I'm happy for this player, I'm happy for their success, but I'm genuinely happy for them because it's been a grind. Gabby didn't have it easy earlier in her career, financially speaking, and now she's made such a wonderful go of it in doubles these past few years. And for Aaron Routliffe, I mean, and this will help us transition to our final topic in a moment. But I remember watching her play the Tevlin Challenger just a few years ago, and that was when the prize money at the Tevlin was not super high, and now it's 75K event, so it's come a ways. But I mean, she was fighting in those type of ITF tournaments, and for her to really make it big over the last year, partnering with Gabby and having slam success and great prize money at this year-end event as well. I mean, you see them on Instagram going up to like first class on the plane with smiles on their face because it's like, yeah, it's still kind of new and fresh, and it's so totally deserved as well. So it's just really nice to say, and they've made it, and there's still so much ahead for those two to accomplish as they've only been, partnered for just over a year now.
Yeah, you're right. It is still some of these experiences. Maybe they're not completely brand new, but as you've said, they've completely made it. And you could see they were really soaking it in again this year. I'll be interested to see what Siniakova and Taylor Townsend do on the doubles side as well. I'd love to see a showdown between those two teams, which would be a rematch of the Wimbledon final. You mentioned the Tevlin Challenger, and that's wrapped up in Toronto. Had a chance to watch plenty of the action this past week at SoBe Stadium. We got a final with a Canadian, 19-year-old Kayla Cross. Reached the final, lost to veteran Luisa Chirico in straight sets. Watched this match courtside. And look, Kayla's come a long way, I think, in the past couple of years, really since we've first started interacting with her, which would have been when she was probably 15, 16, playing junior Grand Slams with Victoria Maboko, and now she's inside the top 300. Look, she lost this match to Chirico in straight sets. First set was incredibly close. She had the early break. She was dictating play, moving really, really well. Ultimately, Chirico seemed to just lean on her experience, someone who's been top 60 before, but it's always great, watching this local tournament, seeing a Canadian face break through. And Mike, last year we saw Marina Stikusic rip through this tournament. And what did she do just a month later at Billie Jean King Cup? So you never know what might become of some of these players, Kayla Cross included.
I would not put anything past Kayla Cross in terms of what she can accomplish. She's so determined, she's so focused. And she hasn't had it easy the last couple of years either, dealing with some injury concerns, which I think more so towards the end of last year were really putting a damper on things. And she's come back and working a little bit more independently now, and yet still having, some terrific success. We saw it this summer through some of the smaller Canadian tournaments as well, and both in singles and in doubles.
Yeah.
And she fully believes in herself, and she's a lot of fun to watch. One of my tennis journalist friends, Ed Kleiman, Canadian tennis journalist who does a lot of work for the CBC, texted me and said he caught a couple of her matches as well in the semis and the finals, and was just so impressed with the progress that she's made over the past 2 years and the confidence and the power that she's playing with. And she's also been a wonderful guest to us here on Matchpoint Canada several times. So feel free to go back and check out some of those interviews. But I think a name to watch, and maybe in the same vein as Marina Stikusic, this is kind of, even though she came second, kind of a propelling her to greater things moving forward in 2025.
Yeah, yeah, well said. And I mean, she won the Saskatoon Challenger, as we know, in August, and that's 3 ITF finals just this summer in singles, not to mention a few doubles titles. So she's playing great. She's up to a career high ranking now of 273, which is fantastic. And I imagine that number will continue going up. I know our episode total will continue going up for this year. This is episode 37. It was great to have Daniel Nestor on the program. We will be back next week, recap the WTA Finals, and get set for the ATP Finals, plus Billie Jean King Cup Finals and Davis Cup Finals just around the corner, Mike.
Can't wait. So stay tuned. Check back. Some great guests coming up as well to finish off the year. Stick with us. We appreciate you listening, and we'll talk to you next time.